Holy City Center Radio. It is episode 172, and I am your host, Christian Sanger. Today is Friday, September 15th, 2023. It is the weekend. Hope your week went just perfectly and you have an amazing weekend ahead. If you're looking for things to do, of course, go to holycitycenter.com. Look for the weekend events page, which should be somewhere near the top. Or if it's not, or if you're listening to us on another day, maybe it's a Tuesday or a Thursday and you're looking for plans, just go to holycitycenter.com/events. You can always go to that page and see what is going on. It automatically opens up the day. You know, whatever day you access it, that's the day that shows up first. You can scroll through to specific dates. You can search by venue, by event type. It's the best events page in Charleston. Be sure you're checking it out. Not much going on here at Holy City Center land. Again, just been plugging along at work. I haven't really gone out and done anything exciting to report back on, so you are spared from any stories today. At least stories about me. As usual, the stories you do care about, the latest news, we will get some of those. So let's dive into it. And of course, it's going to start with some more Murdoch mania. Thursday was a busy day in terms of the Murdoch crew, for lack of a better term, as Alec and some of his co-conspirators were, they were in the news on Thursday for different reasons, some sentencing, some trial dates, and things of that nature. As of this recording, there is one, I believe it was Russell Laffitte, who they're still waiting on some kind of decision today. So there may have been something going on with him as well. But as I'm recording this, it hasn't come out yet. But I do have an update on Alec, as well as one of his other co-conspirators, Corey Fleming. We'll start with Fleming. He was sentenced to 20 years on state charges on Thursday. The judge that oversaw this portion of the case was Judge Clifton Newman, who you may remember from the Murdoch murders trial. The 20-year sentence that Fleming was served on Thursday will run consecutive to the time he is already currently serving. Fleming, as I mentioned, is one of Murdoch's co-conspirators and a longtime friend who pled guilty in both state and federal court to fraud and conspiracy charges. Those charges stem from Fleming's involvement with a Murdoch scheme to steal millions of dollars from clients. Fleming has already begun serving the federal part of his sentence, which was 3 years and 10 months. Federal Judge Richard Gergel sentenced Fleming last month to the lowest recommended term following the suggestion of federal authorities, who said that Fleming's cooperation and honesty in their investigation should perhaps factor into that decision. So because his state and federal sentences will run at the same time, it's not like that. This 20 years will be added on top of the 3 years and 10 months, so he'll still serve those 20 years. But state prosecutors at Fleming's plea hearing hinted at seeking a much harsher sentence. Lead prosecutor Creighton Waters said in court that the state felt Fleming had not cooperated with them and argued his involvement in the schemes was much more intimate than his lawyers suggested. So that's what was going on with Fleming. Meanwhile, Alec himself, he will have his first financial trial, and it'll be the Gloria Satterfield case. His former housekeeper who died on his property after a fall on the steps. He told her family that he would help them get the money because he had insurance. He filed a claim and kept the insurance money for himself. That trial is scheduled to begin on November 27th. And as I mentioned, there may have been some more details that came out after I recorded this, maybe some different details or quotes, or like I said, there are other cases out there. So if there were any other developments that I missed that are important, I'll be sure to talk about those on the next podcast. Changing gears completely, there is a new food documentary that puts competitive oyster shuckers from Charleston and across the world into focus and explores the coast's relationship with oysters, which, of course, if you have spent any time in Charleston, which if you're listening to this, I imagine you have, you know how important oysters are, not just, to, our economy, restaurants using them. There are oyster shuckers, there are oyster farmers, obviously a big part of our food and beverage scene, but it's also wildly important to our environment, and we all know that. So no surprise that Charleston is well represented in this documentary. It's going to be called The Oyster Shucker, and it was actually released to streaming services back on September 5th. So the documentary follows the journey of a person by the name of Honor Allen, who is a Panama City, Florida native, and he is on a quest to become the fastest and youngest oyster shucker in the world. So that's kind of the overarching theme of the documentary. But why are we talking about it here? Because Allen, as he's going through this journey, he meets a lot of different people, forms friendships, and obviously is talking to oyster shuckers, people who are already in this field. One such person is Isabella Macbeth, who is the raw bar manager at NICO over on Chum Creek, Mount Pleasant. Some of you may know Macbeth. She has been featured in local media before. I think there was a city paper, if I'm not mistaken, did a piece on her. And I think there's been some others. And she is active on social media, posting about, her work. If you don't know her, though, just know that she is part of this documentary. So that'll be fun if you are one of those folks who likes to consume anything involving Charleston and its people like myself. You can check that out. The film is currently streaming on multiple platforms, including Amazon, Apple TV, Google Play, and eBox. I also wanted to highlight a really great initiative that the Coastal Community Foundation and some of its partners are implementing here in South Carolina. They are partnering with this organization that I've been interested in a while and have seen some of their news stories and things like that, and always thought it was a great organization. That organization's name is RIP Medical Debt, and if you can tell from the name, they try to wipe out people's medical debt. So Coastal Community Foundation and its affiliate organizations, which includes the Waccamaw Community Foundation, Jewish Endowment Foundation of South Carolina, and others, announced a partnership to abolish more than $4 million in medical debt in this region. And again, this is made possible thanks to a donation from RIP Medical Debt. Now, that national nonprofit buys medical debt in bulk at like a very deep discount. For pennies on the dollar a lot of the times. And then they eliminate that debt for people living 4 times or below the federal poverty level or with debts that are 5% or more of their annual income. The donation will abolish debt for those eligible in the Coastal Community Foundation's 9-county footprint. So that includes Beaufort, Berkeley, Charleston, Colleton, Dorchester, Georgetown, Hampton, Horry, and Jasper counties. So great organization. I always loved that they were doing this. It's unconscionable to me that we live in a country where people can go into debt, go into bankruptcy, have to choose between paying these medical bills or food or whatever it may be. To go into that kind of debt due to medical care is just, like I said, unconscionable to me. I don't know what the perfect solution is. I know a lot of people would say universal health care, and that comes with its challenges. But it blows my mind that in the year 2023, this is still something that happens very frequently. And it's no fault of most people who are in a hospital. It's not necessarily their fault that they're there. If they get sick, they're in an accident. It's just, I don't understand how we can allow people to go into debt and they're already facing whatever their medical issue is. And then we have to do that as well. So anyway, off the soapbox. Thanks to this initial $33,000 donation, it was actually more than that, from the Coastal Community Foundation and its affiliates. That means that $3.14 million in medical debt will actually be erased in this first round of relief. As RIP Medical Debt acquires more debt in this area, additional relief will follow with the remaining donated funds. So it'll get over that $4 million mark, as they likely say they do need about $1 million more in face value medical debt relief. So great. Happy to see this. Again, I just think that is something that we shouldn't even have as an issue in this country. So I'm glad that there's some local organizations partnering with a national organization to at least knock out some of that debt, because there's way more than the $4 million. There are some caveats to these things. When I first heard about this, I'm like, oh, how does someone like apply for this? And it unfortunately doesn't really work like that. So first of all, it has to meet those requirements I mentioned at the top. A certain amount of the debt has to be a certain amount of the person's income. They have to be a certain level around the poverty level. And they still can't apply. Recipients of debt relief are sourced based, which means that medical debt erasure cannot be requested, but is based on which qualifying debts the nonprofit can acquire. So there's some factors that go into it. So unfortunately, if you know someone that's having trouble, it's not like you can recommend them to the organizations, and then those folks, unfortunately, will have to go the route we see a lot of people going through, which is like a GoFundMe or something like that. So how do recipients find out that their debt is erased? They actually get notified through the mail if their debt has been abolished. They get like a branded envelope with RAP medical debt and all this other stuff. So great organization, still obviously a huge issue that we don't have time to dive in deep. It's a problem around the country, not just here in South Carolina, but glad to see, as I mentioned, a local organization, and their affiliates, as well as a nonprofit from the nationwide level, partnering to do good like this. Some other fun stuff that's going on. The Charleston River Dogs won their first playoff game. They are back in the playoffs, third straight season. Can they win the title for the third straight year? Can we have a three-peat? Still early, and they're in the first round. By Monday, they may have moved on, or game 3 may have been forced by Myrtle Beach. That's who they're playing. I'll be sure to keep you updated as they hopefully make their way through the playoffs and pick up that third title. But lots of other stuff going on around town as well, as far as events and fun things. Again, holycitycenter.com/events to see what's going on. Thank you so much for listening. Not a super long episode today, so you can get on to your weekend as soon as possible. But before you take off, you got to listen to the rest. This is important. Number one, if you like this podcast, and if you're listening, I really hope you do, and you're not hate listening or something. But if you are hate listening, thank you for still listening. If you want to help out a little bit more, you can rate and review this podcast, subscribe to it, share it with someone who you think may be interested. All that stuff helps out. You can also go that extra step and go to patreon.com/holycitycenter, or go to holycitycenter.com/shop, where you can pick up some merchandise. All of that helps out with all things Holy City Center, and I greatly appreciate anyone that has done any of those things. I also want to thank Lindsay Collins with LMC Sound System for producing this episode, as well as Tyler Boone, whose music you hear in each episode as well. Speaking of Tyler, his homegrown festival, Holy City Homegrown Festival, is back this year. It's coming up soon. You can get tickets. VIP is sold out, I believe. It's going to be taking place at the Refinery, but there's still tickets available. He also has opened up funding, a second round of funding, if you want to invest in Boone's Bourbon. Just go to their website, social channels, whatever it may be, for more information. So just wanted to throw that out there for him, since he's been so great letting us use his music on this podcast. And as I mentioned, thank you to all of you. Have a fantastic weekend. Make the best of it. Stay safe. Stay cool if this heat continues, and hopefully the rain will hold off and we can have a nice, pretty weekend. But, I'll be honest, I haven't looked at the weather, so there may not even be rain in the forecast. I feel like I heard there was. I don't know. Who knows? I'm just making things up right now. I have no clue what the weather's supposed to be, so I'm just covering my bases. In any event, have a fantastic couple of days. I'll talk to you all on Monday. Until then, good night and good luck.